Creative Living, utilizing today's technology with the best of the past to bring you innovative ideas and up-to-date information for creative lifestyles in today's active world. With your host, Sheryl Borden.
Thanks for joining me today for Creative Living. We're going to learn how to communicate more effectively, and then we'll demonstrate preparing shrimp. One of my next guests is Sue Hansen, and she's a motivational speaker from Montrose, Colorado. Sue will talk about the importance of effective communication, whether it's between your spouse, your children, or a good friend. She emphasizes great listening skills and a desire to change behaviors. Her business is Sue Hansen Speaks. We'll begin the show today with John Valertson, or more commonly referred to as Chef Johnny V, and he's a cookbook author and a chef. John will demonstrate how to cook with inexpensive and versatile shrimp. He stresses that shrimp are low fat, but big on flavor, and that they're a versatile ingredient that adapts themselves easily to many different types of cuisine. And to illustrate this point, he'll prepare 3 great recipes that showcase how easy shrimp is to incorporate into a family meal. His company is Las Cosas Cooking School in Santa Fe, New Mexico. John, thank you so much for being with us. I noticed in your book there's a whole section on cooking shrimp.
I call that chapter Shrimply Delicious.
And it is.
And you know the great thing about shrimp, affordable, stay in the freezer. You can pull a few out at a time. You don't have to thaw the whole bag. And they're very versatile. So
and
today,
they cook fast.
They cook really quickly. And you know, I'm single, I get home from work. I don't want to spend 2 hours cooking a roast or a chicken. Shrimp take minutes, and the key is also to undercook them so that they don't get rubbery. They cook almost in a minute. So today we're going to do 2 things. We're going to make a very popular Spanish tapa, which is simply shrimp sauteed in a lot of garlic, olive oil, and red pepper flakes to give it a kick. Just serve with a little crostini.
Now, what does tapa mean? I've seen that in recipes.
And that's a good question. Tapa is actually a Spanish word for lid.
Lid.
And in the early 1900s, when bars started serving maybe a little nosh in bars, it's sort of a bar snack, bartenders, if you think about it, Spain is very dusty. When you were drinking your sherry, the bartender might take a slice of bread and set it over your glass, and meaning lid tapa.
To keep dust
To
from
keep the
getting
dust
in.
out. And so then little by little, you could eat that piece of bread. Then it might have been a little piece of chorizo or ham. And then it just became sort of a snack food.
I see.
So very
Tapas.
versatile. So what I have here is some good extra virgin olive oil. And I'm just going to heat this up, and I can hear it bubbling already. I'm going to add some sliced garlic, and that's about 8 garlic cloves. I really want to get that bubbling. And that's going to happen quick. And as soon as that garlic is brown, we're going to add our shrimp, and we do want to be careful because I think we're going to have a little bit of a splashing going on. Okay. Now I don't want to add the shrimp too quick because that will stop the shrimp from browning. Okay. Now these are peeled shrimp. These are medium shrimp. I thaw them in a little bit of water with some salt in it, and that sort of acts like a little bit of a marinade for the shrimp so that they kind of get plump again.
The salt.
The salt does, yeah. It's like a little brine. And now I've got my shrimp. My little garlic is nice and golden. And then I'm going to carefully
stand back
and add my shrimp. Now, Sheryl, this is going to take virtually 1 minute. Realize as soon as shrimp are pink, they're done. Okay.
And you don't want to turn your back and go do something else because that really can, if they're overcooked, they're just not good.
Yeah, they're not good, and then they get hard and they sort of lose their. And then this is just a baguette that I sliced and toasted with a little bit of olive oil on there. We'll use that as a little vehicle to eat our shrimp with, some red pepper flakes, because you want this to have a nice little kick. Another thing you can do with this, Sheryl, is actually put this over linguine and have linguine with shrimp and have a delicious pasta dish.
Well, that's a good idea.
So while this is going, I'm just going to let that cook for 1 more minute. Our sauce for our waffles is actually going to be a smoked shrimp sauce, which is going to be sort of a nice brunch dish. So what I have done is I have smoked some shrimp. This is called a Cameron stovetop smoker. I use these all the time. Meant for cooking indoors, smoking on gas, electric, or glass top stoves. And it comes with wood chips,
Here they are.
which are there. And it's almost like sawdust. It doesn't really look like chips. It's really sawdust. And very simply, the directions tell you to add 2 tablespoons of the wood chips under your pan in here. And then look at those little babies.
Oh gosh, those look great.
So that took about 6 minutes to smoke. So that is actually going to go in our sauce. You can smoke a side of salmon in about 11 minutes. So versatile. I have a bunch of recipes for the smoker in my cookbook. Whoops. Okay.
And don't they say almost all fish you can figure, what is it, an inch?
Yeah, sort of
it's
by,
about 10 minutes per inch or something?
Yeah, and you can, depending on how thick, the shrimp took not long because they're small.
Yeah, they're so small.
Okay, look at this. So this is our bubbling shrimp. And we'll have those in a minute. I'm just going to put a little fresh cilantro on top there. And then we'll have those with our croutons in a minute.
Good.
Okay, so for the shrimp sauce, I've got some butter. I'm going to saute some shallots and some green scallions or green onions. Okay. Get those a little bit brown.
Scallions and onions can be used interchangeably.
Yeah, if you'd like them to be a little bit milder, they're actually a nice, a milder onion.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm going to let those soften a little bit. Now, for our waffles, these are called overnight waffles. So in my book, what you have to do, and I did this last night, so cute in my hotel room, I was mixing my little waffle mix on the television. So this is flour, buttermilk, a little bit of sugar, salt, and a little bit of yeast. And if you have a whiff of this,
I can smell it.
it's like,
Oh.
they're going to think we're making beer in my room. So what I did last night is got this started, let this foam overnight. Now these are 2 egg yolks that today, when you get ready to start making your waffles, we're going to fold that in. And this is real, look at this, oh wow.
It just makes it fluffier by making it and letting it set overnight.
Making it set overnight, you develop your yeast. And then by folding in your eggs the next day, you're really going to have light waffles. And now these are my 2 egg whites that I whipped until stiff, and then we're going to fold these in. So this is my favorite waffle iron. This is a Waring waffle iron, and they make really big sort of, state fair size waffles. So you don't have to be real gentle with your whites. This can go in pretty quickly. Notice I'm going around and coming in the middle, around and in the middle. Do you want to finish that for me, Cheryl?
Sure.
Folding. And then I've got my onions are softened here. I'm going to add some nice chopped Roma tomatoes. And of course some nice crispy bacon.
Yes.
Because this will make a nice brunch dish.
Well,
And then-
you know, I make waffles a lot, and I usually have bacon.
Yeah, so this kind of...
But I had never thought about using shrimp. That
Well,
just
wait till you-
sounds
And
kind
you know,
of
the
odd.
smoked shrimp almost have a bacony
Bacon.
sort of
Because they're a little
flavor.
crisper.
So I'm going to throw these in. And then the low-fat part of this is a 1.5 cups of heavy cream. But it is, you know, brunch food is meant to be enjoyed. Whoops, I'm having trouble catching my... And then we're going to add a little bit of fish stock, which I make, but you can also use clam juice. Just bottled clam juice is fine.
Right, you can buy that.
So I'm going to add a little bit of that. Okay, and then we're going to add our cream, let this simmer down, and then we're going to ladle this over our finished waffles.
Oh my gosh. This
Now
has to be good.
Now, this will be yummy. Now, the piece de resistance, of course, is something called smoked Spanish paprika. This comes from Spain. It is paprika that's been smoked, and it's a wonderful addition. I use this in a lot of...
Do you buy that in a
and you could,
specific
more in a
place?
specialty store.
Okay.
It may not be in your local grocery store, but...
But it's worth buying, and I guess it would last
oh my-
quite a while.
Yeah, and I use it in potato salad. And okay, so I've got my waffle iron heated up. Now, the cool thing about this waffle iron is after I fill it, you flip it.
Oh.
And that helps that waffle drop down so that it doesn't stick. I'm going to give it a very light spray with vegetable spray. And then we're going to take a nice ladle of our batter. And it takes a little bit of practice to see how much of this you need. You don't want it to be oozing out the sides, but
It depends on your own waffle iron
yeah,
too, what
whatever
size it is.
So I'm going to drop this and then flip it around, and the cool thing is a light comes on and tells me when it's ready, which is great. So let's move that, and that's only going to take a minute. Now this sauce will just thicken enough that we can
So
serve
we're
it
going to
over.
put the smoked shrimp
are
on
in
top
there,
of the waffle
on top of the waffle
and
as
then
our
pour the sauce on it.
Yep.
I see.
As our sauce. So this will just take a minute. You know, certainly these waffles you could serve as regular waffles, as your breakfast waffles and stuff. But they're really, you know, delicious waffles. I'm more of a crispy waffle guy. I'm not a, not a
Gooey.
soft. My 95-year-old father has frozen waffles in the freezer that he puts in the toaster, and I'm like, Dad, those are not.
That's not
That's
really
not-
waffles.
yeah, that's not
But
what
they're
you're
nice in
looking
a
for.
hurry.
Yeah, they're good for a hurry. But so this is going to thicken very quickly, and then we'll have a little garnish of cilantro. And then now what I do occasionally is, so you don't get your waffle too dark, most waffle irons do have an adjustment for how long they last, but we can kind of turn. Let's do that for one more minute until they're nice and
This
golden
is more like what
brown.
they call those Belgian
Belgian
waffles.
waffle.
They're
That was the word. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. And
Uh-huh.
you know, I love how all the state fairs this summer always announce the newest fast food. And did you hear last year? I think it was in Texas. They had fried butter. Was one of the
fried butter.
fried butter? They made a little dumpling out of butter, fried it, and when you bit into it, there was melting butter in there. So.
Oh, well, I
Been a
wonder
bit
how that went
interesting.
over.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that would go over here. We'd have to have green chili melted butter here. All right, so that's thickening up nicely. And I'm just going to check this again. I think
it's
that
getting-
looks pretty good. Let's leave it for one more minute. The old television thing where you're watching a waffle cook. You know?
A watched pot never boils. or-
Really. So if you would like to, there we go. If you'd like to
tells
do this without the bacon, certainly you can do that, just to make it, you know, not quite as. Okay, so I'd flip that over. Look at
Ooh,
that,
that's
baby.
a beautiful one.
So I'm going to carefully. That's pretty close to being a full.
Uh-huh.
And then look at that.
Ooh, it is fluffy.
And now, now I'm going to take some of my sauce, and we'll just top our little waffle, and then we can have some of our tapas here. Let me take that. I want to make sure we get all the shrimp in there.
That's the best part.
Yeah, really.
So this would be one serving.
Yeah, I think this,
Probably.
you might even, depending on how big your brunch guests are, you could even cut those into quarters.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm doing a brunch, this is one of the dishes I do, and then we give everybody sort of a quarter of a waffle.
Right.
And then you might have an egg dish as well.
And maybe if you had fresh fruit, that would
Yeah,
not take
you
up so
could-
much room on the same
Yeah,
plate.
absolutely. A little fresh cilantro. Look at how beautiful that is. So that's our Belgian waffle with a creamy shrimp sauce. And why don't we try our little tapas here? You do want to be careful when that shrimp is hot, because that can.
I guess.
And what I do is just put a crostini down, grab a little shrimp and put it on top there. We'll try to balance this. Yep. And then we have sort of around the world with shrimp. I'll let you grab one, Cheryl, and we can see if that can get into our.
Put it.
Yummy. Good, good. And next we'll
It
have
is
our
good.
waffles.
Okay. Well, John, thank you so much. Excuse me for talking while I'm eating. You always bring things that are unusual, but yet things that would be easy enough for everyone to
And
prepare.
I think, you know, cooking should be quick and not, I mean, these are fairly interesting and exotic dishes, but you don't have to spend all day in the kitchen. We have to have fun.
But your guests will think you did, and that's all that matters.
That's the best part.
Thank you very much for being
Thank
here
you.
today. Sue, thank you so much for being with us today, and we're going to communicate about communication, but about a special type of communication. Tell us
That's
about
right.
this.
Are you married?
Yes.
So we're going to talk about spouse talk. You know, what's interesting to me about communication with spouses is, I mean, this is the person that you know the best in your whole life. I mean, you live with this person, you're intimate with this person, you're supposed to be communicating, you do everything with this person, and yet the communication seems to be difficult. Isn't that, don't you find
Well,
that?
and don't they say that besides money and sometimes in-laws, the lack of communication is one of the biggest reasons for divorce?
It is, and you know, even if you take it to the corporate level, every time I get called in to talk to a company, the problems usually stem from communication, lack of communication.
Yeah.
It's just hard to really connect. And then when we have the layered technology, it really even makes it that much more difficult. But it's difficult to talk to your spouse. It's difficult to have those conversations. So I thought that it would be useful to talk a little bit about why is it so difficult between males and females. And it turns out, you know, we speak differently. We hear differently.
Like the Venus and Mars type of information?
Yeah. I think
We're different.
we're different. and you really have to have some specific intention in order to make it better in your household. So, you know, if you really think about it, you know, we communicate by dashing from one room to the other, and, you know, as my husband gets older, he can't hear me from this room to that room, so now we have a rule, we have to be in the same room when we talk, so I guess he can lip read. I'm not really sure what he's doing, but it was still...
And there's still the TV in the background blaring in our case.
That's right. So it really is... Because it's such an important thing, and you know, you look at divorce, is 53% of the marriages end up in divorce. I can't help but think many of them are because we are not communicating, because it takes, again, energy to communicate well. So effective communication between spouses is really essential. So I think putting some thought into how men communicate and how women communicate is really useful. So I have a couple of tips. Now, you may want to try this on your husband. I'm not really sure why we can't communicate. I'm not really sure. It seems like it should be so simple, but it really is very difficult.
Well, one of the things you mentioned, and I hadn't thought about that being a type of communication, was that besides talking all the time, we don't listen enough or listen well.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I think in our if you think about two people talking, the person talking is spending the next minute not listening to the person, but thinking about what they're going to say. And we've become that kind of a society, it seems to me. So listening is a lost art, and it takes energy to listen as well. So from a communication standpoint, there's a couple things that women like better. Women like men to communicate with their eyes. They like to have eye contact. And do you think men use eye contact very much?
Well, no, because they're usually watching the television and listening to you with one ear.
Yeah, they do not. They're not. Women tend to use eye contact more, and we actually gaze with eye contact longer than men do on average. So more seconds spent and really listening to. And when we use eye contact in our culture, it means that I'm listening to you, I'm connected to you, I'm really interested in you. And when men don't look at us, that conveys all the opposite. I'm not listening to you, I don't care about you. And so it starts the whole communication process off on the wrong foot. So women like eye contact. Men need to just sort of jump in there and use a little bit more eye contact, which does not mean that you just stare
and make us nervous.
Yes, you have to, 3 seconds at a time, looking back and forth and things like that. But eye contact is important to women, and it's important in the connection piece.
And you said also, as I noticed I was doing as you were talking, I was,
right. So
we want a little feedback.
Feedback. I call them listening noises. So if you think about when I speak to my husband, he just listens, which would be really good. It's good. He's just listening. But I don't know that he's listening because he's not giving me any of those, good idea. Sue, you're wonderful. Those are listening noises. Those are the kind of listening noises I want to hear. Sue, that is such a fascinating idea. But men don't do that necessarily. So that tells me that he's tracking with what I'm saying. He's paying attention and he's with me. If you're on the phone with a man and he's not using listening noises, how do you know he's?
Are you still there?
Yeah, are you there? Exactly.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? So you know, the differences are subtle, and I think we can work it out instead of just being at war with one
And
another.
recognize that it is different types of
And
techniques.
exactly.
And something else that I think that you had mentioned was that men don't want all those details and all the emotional part we might put into it, or the rumor that goes along with what we're talking about. Just cut to the chase.
Exactly. So men,
Hadn't thought about
and you
that.
know, there are some differences. We're kind of painting a broad stroke here, but typically men want to get to the bottom line. So what? They don't want to hear that Joan's wedding didn't go well and her mother showed up and this is what happened. And you know, women, we tend to get into that story. I call them the shaggy
Rambling.
dog story. It's like, oh. So if you want to be effective in speech, in your communication, and this goes beyond even the spousal thing, then you know, you want to monitor your words. You don't want to talk too much and you don't want to talk too briefly. You want to make sure it's just right. And the way you can gauge that is by watching body language. So if you started, you know, if you started looking at your watch, or you looked away, or you walked away, I'd pretty much know I've lost your attention.
Right.
So it's a engagement when the communication. You have to be watching as much as you're speaking, and then listening. I say it's an active sport because you really have to work at listening. And again, if you sort of touch back with our society and how busy we are, we're not really listening to each other. We're deciding what we want to do next. So if you really listen to somebody, you really engage with them at the moment, like you are with me. You're actually looking at me, you're listening. You know, if I said something funny, you'd probably laugh because it was the appropriate time. But you're in the moment and you're present with me, and that validates the speaker. So that therein lies the secret, is you have to be willing to listen and validate the speaker.
And another point you mentioned, I wanted you to comment on, it says, judge not the content.
Right.
Whether we're interested or not, we can still listen with an open mind.
Often when you're trying to communicate with your spouse, it's an emotionally charged situation. And as we know, with conflict or any kind of emotionally charged situation, it may not come out as we expected. It might be sharper than we expect. It might be meaner than we had planned on. And when that happens, you break down the communication connection right then. So I say, if I'm the receiver of that, I'm going to be more considerate of that. This is an emotionally charged situation, so I'm not going to judge necessarily that that's exactly what they mean. I'm going to look at
Be
the intent.
open-minded.
Look at the intent, not the delivery, is kind of how you could put that. So you know, it even goes at work. If you have to confront somebody over something that's pretty emotionally dicey, or it's going to be hurtful, you want to keep that in mind, that no matter what, it might come out a little bit weird. So don't judge the delivery, judge the intent of what they really mean behind that. So,
And like you mentioned a little bit on earlier, avoid distractions. I can think of so many times, and it always seems to happen in the kitchen because everything revolves around the kitchen. But you're trying to take care of cooking, maybe grandkids, maybe the doorbell rings, the phone rings, you've got a text message coming in, and yet you and your husband are trying to agree on maybe airline reservations for a trip you're going to take.
That's a really good example. But you never get to the agreement part, or else he goes and makes the reservation because he thought you agreed to something that you didn't agree to. So we suffer from something that someone who worked at Hewlett-Packard coined as continual partial attention, CPA, that we don't give any one thing enough attention to really fully absorb it, because we're so busy. We sort of give snippets of our attention. And if you look at our news, it's all about the snippet. It's all about the short little piece.
I hardly ever read anything if it's over a little paragraph.
Right.
I just want the
you want the bottom line.
bottom line.
So you know, that continual partial attention is really seeping into our world, and it happens in our communication too. So we give these little snippets of communication as we interact with our spouse, and then we find that we agreed to something we didn't want to agree to. And so it really, avoid the distractions. I say set aside time specifically to pay attention, and you know, value your spouse enough that you can sit there and say, let's make some decisions on this, instead of flying over here and flying over there and going to work and whatever else comes on. There's always going to be a lot of distractions.
And in the long run, it certainly does pay off.
Well, hopefully it does.
You hope. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Those are interesting comments about the different ways that we communicate.
Well, happy spouse talk.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Next time on Creative Living, we'll learn how to make treat pops, talk about the benefits of acupuncture, and find out how to use candles to make special events even more special. One of my next guests is going to demonstrate how to make treat pops, which are sweet, individual servings of cake layered with icing or a favorite filling and topped with a festive accent suitable for any occasion. Another guest is a doctor of Oriental medicine, and he's also written a book on relieving pain. He's going to explain what acupuncture can and cannot do. He'll also talk about how to choose an acupuncturist, the expense involved, and discuss insurance coverage. And finally, we'll learn how candles make all events, special occasions, and gifts even more special. My guest says it's important to create a wow factor at every event, and candles can help do this. All of these topics will be featured on the next Creative Living show. If you ever have comments or suggestions or ideas for shows, you can email me at sheryl.borden@enmu.edu. I'd also like to ask you to become a fan of Creative Living on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and in the search window type in Creative Living with Sheryl Borden. I hope you'll plan to join me next time for Creative Living.
We are very pleased to offer a new booklet that accompanies this series of Creative Living. This booklet is titled the 6700 Series, and it features a wonderful collection of ideas and information, and it's available free of charge on our website. Posted as a PDF file, you can simply download the entire booklet or just the segments you're most interested in. You'll find information on foods, nutrition, clothing, fashion, health and beauty, home decorating, and much more. For your copy of this new booklet, go to our website at KENW.org and then click on Creative Living. Scroll down to the booklet section and you can click on this booklet or on any of the other booklets we have available online. Just go to KENW.org, click on Creative Living, and download the booklet titled the 6700 Series. We also invite you to sign up for our free e-newsletter. Just go to KENW.org and click on the Sign Up Now button and input your email address. That's all there is to it. You'll enjoy reading an up-to-date newsletter filled with interesting topics and information. Thank you.